went to decided to boycott certain businesses. First it was Walmart, next Johnson & Johnson products, and then Blockbuster Video. They stood by the greeters, handing out flyers, telling us why we shouldn't go to these businesses anymore. Because it was our Christian duty. We need to prove a point, they said. Now at another church, there was a group against the troll dolls, the Narnia classics, and some wouldn't even buy Nike shoes. One time when I was a family ministries director, a very devoted Sunday school teacher who had been attending the church for years immediately quit when we decided to do some VeggieTale curriculum. Are we here to make a point or to make a difference? There was a young pastor who was asked to pray for the president one time. Now this pastor had a meeting scheduled with Dr. Billy Graham, and he was hoping to meet with Dr. Graham before he gave his answer. When he finally met Dr. Graham, he told him this: Dr. Graham, I have a dilemma. I've been invited to pray for the president. Is that too political? Is this something I really should be doing? And here's what Billy Graham said. He said, son, you're a pastor. You've been invited to pray for someone. That's what we do. And there you have it, the wisdom of the age. Are we here to make a point or make a difference? If you read in Acts and the letters of Paul, you may be surprised by something. Neither Jesus nor Paul placed themselves against anything in culture or even against the Roman Empire. In fact, the only thing that they were constantly up against were the people on the religious side. They were against everything. Have you ever been to a church where you got the feeling, become like us and then you can join us? We look outside our walls at the sinful lifestyles and the things we don't agree with. And we say to ourselves, once you become like us, then you can come inside and join us. Now, who does that sound like? Not Jesus. No, not Jesus, because Jesus walked up to a despised tax collector, Matthew, and said, hey, take a break and come follow me. Where are we going? Asked Matthew. We're going to your house. Invite your friends. Now, even the disciples had a problem with this. And they reminded him of this. Do you know what this man is? People will think we approve of his ways. We can be really good at joining a cause but missing the call. Making a point but not making a difference. It's always easier to make a point than it is to make a difference. How many of you have sat down with your kids and said, now I want you to sit down and give me your undivided attention right now. And you proceed, blah, 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 blah. And then you're done and they go to the room and you tell them, go to your room and I want you to think about everything I told you right now. So they go off to their room and you feel pretty good about yourself because you made your point, right? But meanwhile in their room, they're playing their video games again and they're going back to their life. But as a parent, we felt really good because we made our point to our child. But did it make a difference? Anything change? Here's my point. Telling someone that they're wrong is different than guiding them to do something right or equipping them to do something right. Making a point is easy, but it is very, very difficult to make a difference. It requires a completely different strategy. When you make a point, you feel better. You can even draw a crowd. We can throw hand grenades in all kinds of areas, pointing out what's wrong, right? But are we making a difference? This morning we're going to find out how Jesus and Paul made a difference. Within 300 years of of the death of Jesus Christ, Rome embraced Christianity. Christianity overcame a very religious culture that was in effect for over 1,000 years. And the way they accomplished this was not by making a point. First, Jesus and Paul intentionally built relational bridges with those they disagreed with the most. Imagine that. They were always building relational bridges with the people they wanted to influence. The question is, who do we want to influence here? There's a great example of this in Acts. One day the Apostle Paul was in Athens. Now, Athens was a very religious place. Everywhere Paul went, he saw statues of gods throughout the city. So what do you think he should have been preaching about? Idolatry, of course. And he would have been exactly right. He had hundreds of examples to choose from. But would he have made a difference? Probably not. Paul was smart enough to know, I'm not here to make a point. I'm here to make a difference. So instead, Paul does a brilliant thing. He finds one of their many altars with no image on it. And this altar is dedicated to the unknown God. Now, this may seem kind of funny to us, but there really was an altar dedicated to an unknown God. You see, the Athenians didn't want to offend any of the gods. So they thought, what if we leave one out? We should have an extra altar just in case a new God shows up. I mean, they were serious about this. And when they heard Paul and him talking, they wanted to know more about this new teaching. So they invited Paul to a council meeting, and he uses this. They took Paul to a council meeting, and they said, please explain to us this new idea that you have been teaching. The things you are saying are new to us. We've never heard this teaching before, and we want to know what it means. The people at Athens and the foreigners who lived there spent all their time either telling or listening to all the latest ideas. Then Paul stood up before the meeting at the Areopagus Council and said, men of Athens, everything I see here tells me you're very religious. I was going to your city and I saw the things you worship. I found an altar that had these words written on it, to an unknown God. You worship a God that you don't know. This is the God I want to tell you about. Paul didn't preach against idolatry. He preaches for the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And at the end of this message, many want to hear more. You see, he didn't position himself against. He found a connection with the people that disagreed with him the most. Second, Paul and Jesus didn't judge non-believers for behaving like non-believers. We can't expect people who have never embraced Christianity to act like Christians. Here's what Paul taught. He asked this question, what business do we have of judging outsiders? The answer is none. Why should we hold non-believers accountable to a set of rules they've never subscribed to begin with? When Christians refuse to police their own behavior, but try to police everyone else's, they call that hypocrisy, don't they? And people can see that from a mile away. Paul didn't go to Athens to point the finger at everyone. I can't believe you're worshiping all these idols. Of course they're worshiping idols. They're not Jews, they're not Christians. So the question is, how can we make a difference here at Page? We need to build relational bridges. We cannot just point fingers. That's why our approach needs to be so strategic. We've got to be about our Father's business, not our own. Think about it. If God has a plan for this church, and if God's plan is for this church to make a difference in this community by bringing the hope of Christ to the people here, are we doing that? God has a plan for all his churches to participate in, to make a difference, but because of the shortage of people and the time and the money, there's many churches that cannot make the difference that they hope for. Christians can get so caught up in their own good works that they can actually miss how much their involvement in their own church is needed. And without their help and support, what can the church accomplish outside of its walls? It takes people, it takes their time, and it takes money. Are we following Jesus? Or are we following our own good works?
Nice glasses.
Oh, thanks.
I have 20/20 vision. I don't really need glasses.
Oh. Well, I used to have perfect vision until I caught eye disease while on the mission field. So, glasses, totally worth it.
Where did you do mission work?
I spent an entire week in Africa.
Oh, I was in Africa for an entire year. It's amazing how much you get to know Jesus when you're there for that long.
Where were you in Africa? I rescue orphans from there all the time.
Really? I wonder if you rescued them from the orphanages that I built there.
I don't think so.
Oh, you wouldn't probably know that they're mine. I don't have my name on the building or anything. I prefer to remain anonymous.
Well, I prefer to remain anonymous too, but when you do so much for Jesus like I do, you just can't help but be known. Listen, I have built so many hospitals and churches because I care about the body and the soul.
That's nice, but I don't need a church to save souls. I just preach from the side of the mountain, like Jesus.
Well, if you would come down off of that mountain, you would know what people really need, like I do.
Please, like you know what people need. Me and Jesus, we're tight.
Look, you guys wouldn't even know Jesus if he came up to you with a sign that said, "I'm Jesus."
Are you kidding? I've brought more people to Jesus than Jesus.
Well, he wouldn't even have a ministry if it wasn't for me. Jesus. What are you doing?
Do you love me? Do you really love me? Then follow me.
We can be in all kinds of worthwhile programs, which consumes a lot of our time, our energy, and our money. But are we making a difference? You see, we can offer Band-Aids in many things, but I'm talking about making a difference in someone's life eternally. Is God calling you to make that kind of difference? It will take all of us together for our church to make a difference here and the surrounding communities. Making a difference in offering the hope of Jesus Christ in this community. So we must be spiritually connected together. Because when we're spiritually connected, we become a church of disciples. And disciples make a point by making a difference. And when we're a church of disciples, the involvement required, the money needed, it'll always be there. Because making a difference will be our priority. And we will be about our Father's business. A few weeks ago, I asked if you'd be interested in doing a crazy outreach, VeggieTown. And the response was remarkable. We passed around a little survey thing. I was amazed. Next, I asked for your financial support. for it. I put envelopes out, and we've been getting them nonstop. People are contributing. So now, in a few weeks, we have an opportunity to do an outreach that will connect to our community. To make a point and a difference. VeggieTown is an outreach created to make a point by showing the love of Christ, that the love of Christ can be experienced even on the darkest holiday of the year. And VeggieTown is also an outreach designed to make a difference by providing a safe and fun environment for families on Halloween and reminding them that God loves them. When you're there, you'll see little things that will say that. We'll be sitting around, and it's been amazing. I've done these outreaches for 5 years, and we strategically place people sitting around in case someone's sitting by themselves. Ask how to do it. It's amazing how the love of Christ works in that. And you start telling them about Jesus or inviting them to church. But we never push it on them, but it happens. And we have the freedom to say that and be there for them. The thing is, this is one outreach. We need to continue to be a church that wants to make a difference here. Spiritually, together. That's what Jesus taught, that's what Paul modeled, and that's what the early church did. We have a choice. Let's pray. Lord, you have brought us together